funding with the IDC as part of Pele Green Energy. Pele Green Energy has got funding for the various renewable energy programs or projects that they've started up and operate. So we've got power plants in the Eastern Cape, in the Western Cape and in the Northern Cape, and as part of those programs, IDC has provided funding.
Really encouraged by the number of young people that have turned out here that are looking for opportunity. IDC have put on a fantastic show, and I think that there's going to be a great sort of upsurge in people coming out. And I think the fact that people are getting informed as to what the combination of IDC, government and industry are offering to young people.
To make this notion of independent power production a new normal to ourselves and a new normal to society. But in doing that, I think we've discovered an even deeper and more important mission about our place in society.
Fumani, thank you very much for talking to us, right? And we appreciate, still a young lady, managing director, Knowledge Pele. Is this a one-man show business?
No.
Or one-woman show, rather?
Definitely not a one-woman show business. Yeah. I'm charged with looking after Knowledge Pele, but in all I represent the Pele Energy Group. The Pele Energy Group is founded by myself and 4 other partners. I'm actually one female amongst 4 men. And so we started the business in 2009, broadly with a view to make an impact on the structure of the South African and the African economy. That's what drove us out of corporate employment, and eventually we managed to find the connection between the mission, which is structural change, and a vehicle through which to do it, which is primarily the energy sector.
And did you see a gap in the energy sector for you guys to go for that sector?
Yeah. We definitely did see a gap. At the time at which we started the business, the state had already indicated that there would be an independent power production sector that would be set up. So historically, we've always depended on Eskom to produce power and supply to the country. But the massive shift was that the energy sector was being liberalized. It wasn't obvious to us how exactly we'd participate, because at the time it wasn't articulated clearly by the state, but we knew there was an opportunity. And we really spent this first 2 years of our business trying to figure out how exactly to participate. I think the bigger thing for us, because we aren't engineers by training, was to actually learn what this sector would entail and what it would mean for us to carve a space for ourselves in the space.
And I'm thinking about energy is capital intensive. You need loads of money to make things happen there, right? Barriers to entry, were they too high for yourselves? And how did you create an opportunity for yourselves or overcome that barrier?
So the plotting part of the story is a function of the work experience that we had. So amongst us, we have people who worked in the corporate finance space, the project finance space. And one of the things that we did between 2009 and 2011 was to introduce ourselves to the banks, to say we're here. And as soon as the sector is ready, we'd like to sort of have your ear in raising money. So it's true that the sector that we work in is capital intensive, but I think the great thing about the policy environment in the country is that if you have a bankable project, it is possible to access funding, primarily through development financiers like the IDC, who then back the participation of the small guys, and that's us. I think the irony and the challenge that we're trying to unlock at the moment is that it's possible to back our participation in a project such that we can hold equity in these massive energy projects, and at the same time we're not able to raise basic working capital to exist as a business. So for a very long time we had these assets on our books that amounted to a lot of millions of rands, but we weren't able to even pay ourselves salaries. We weren't able to move out of the garage that we first started working in. And I think that's really the kind of transition that we're advocating for in the sort of the broader space of entrepreneurship in South Africa, to say young people such as ourselves should really not be under the same kind of pressure that we were under, because what made it possible for us to survive those tough years was really just a very patient family infrastructure. Parents were willing to house us again, give us petrol money and really fund our existence. And I think that's something that we can't expect reasonably of a lot of South African families. And if we really are serious about a very radical growth path, then we definitely need to ensure that we make it possible for entrepreneurs to survive the early days.
And to get into the system now and develop markets, how was the challenge?
I think, developing markets is a function of networks and exposure. While no one is going to give you anything, on a platter, but where the work comes in, which is what defines us as entrepreneurs, is in having the ability to knock on doors and to tell your story and to be who you say you are long before you actually are. So today, we, on our books, we have 1,300 megawatts of power. We support the development of the communities that we operate in. Our vision is to transform those communities into new manufacturing industrial hubs of the country. Our vision is to become a utility, and that means really becoming the largest non-state provider of power on the African continent. We're talking that game now, and we're already building for the future. And I think that is the bread and butter of any business. That you talk the talk, you walk the walk, and you do the work and you prepare. But no one's going to give it to you.
Now, in terms of managing the risks that go with projects of this nature, huge amounts of money, developing the markets, the politics around it. Because sometimes the future of independent power producers can be in limbo without knowing whether it's going to happen or not happen. So how are you managing yourselves and managing the environment and the risks attached?
Yeah. From an internal perspective, what's been important to us is to graduate from the position of simply being an owner on a power plant, which really can amount to being a passive shareholder, to ensuring that we take on a lot more of the services attached to our power plants. So, we've grown from this team of 5 in a garage to a team of 20 that includes engineers. We have an asset management team, we have a community development team, so that we are actually doing work and therefore generating revenue by virtue of our power plants graduating from the point of being developed all the way to when they're operating and serving the communities that they're located in. So that for us is quite an important risk mitigant, because it means that we're developing key skills that we can then sell to third parties as well. We can manage other people's projects. We can manage the economic development obligations linked to those projects. So that's what we're doing internally. I think, we remain a business, and therefore we can't get involved in politics and in the local political environment. But what is becoming more necessary for our company is geographic diversification. So we have a gas plant in Mozambique, and the strategy is to move beyond South Africa so that, whatever government risk we face as a function of, putting power on the national grid, we're able to diversify by operating in various countries across the continent.
Let me get your views on the Grow E Youth Scheme and the huge amounts of money that IDC is going to put behind enterprises that are run by young people, as well as contrast this scheme with your relationship with the IDC. Is it an improvement, or what direction do you think or momentum is this likely to give to youth entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think it's a massive step forward. Just starting at the level of the portal and being able to access a network of young people, as well as experts who can give actual guidance on where your business is going and the quality of the plan, is a massive step forward. And because we do increasingly exist in a virtual world, it makes sense that young people would want to interact and work on a platform of that nature. So in the first place, I think that's amazing. That there is an existing pool of funding that's willing to back the big ideas of young people and therefore, attach, in a sense, back what is in fact risk is really important, and this is what we couldn't do. So the reason we stayed in a garage for a very long time was because there was no capital that was willing to understand that, to manage these assets, when you talk about how we manage the risk, to manage the assets, we actually need to be operational. We need to attend shareholder meetings. And these are very sort of small issues. And, I think for people who are working and accustomed to receiving an income, sometimes we lose sight of what it actually takes for an entrepreneur to keep functioning and to manage the business that they're growing. And so, for me, I think this is a great step in the right direction. And I think we should continue to also back sectors that really reflect the future of South Africa's economy.
Fumani, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Much appreciated, and good luck.
My challenge to you is to say, let's start a conversation and let's make it clear that we belong in society, not as pariahs, not as people who will kill our workers, but as people who are here to advance a much bigger mission of society. And I think if we cannot answer that question in a way that is satisfactory to society, then we risk all these businesses that we are so married to being nationalized or, sort of being discarded, because we ourselves have a responsibility to society. Thank you very much.
The product is called a dip tube. In essence, what it is, it's a fuel profiling device.
I used to watch a lot of television and movies, and those characters were like my friends, and the love for telling stories really came from that for me.
It's a family business. The grounding was there, and I've just tried to continue the legacy.
We manufacture concrete blocks, produce it, cure it, and then we sell it to customers.
We do sports nutrition from whey protein to mass gainers, from assisting for weight loss, up to sports performance, endurance.
Stuart, thanks very much for joining us once again. Now we have this conference, young people attending, and we've got high-powered speakers here. Just tell me about the concept of GrowE.
Thanks, Tim. Well, GrowE is a particular product that IDC has to support youth entrepreneurs. In fact, what we're doing through the GrowE Youth Scheme is to provide financing to the youth entrepreneurs with reduced rates. But at the same time, we expect them to create a certain amount of jobs in relation to the money that we give them. So in the GrowE Youth Scheme, we provide up to 3% below prime if the business is more than 50% owned by youth. It reduces to prime less 2 if the business is more than owned, empowered to more than 25%. So it's really an effort by IDC to try and promote youth ownership in businesses, and to also, as far as possible, to become actually masters of their own destiny. The other aspect, as I mentioned, is we wanted, young people generally tend to employ young people. So we've also put in the GrowE Youth Scheme a condition that they should create at least one job per 500,000 rand that they receive.
And the types of people who qualify, I mean, in what particular sectors will you?
Well, given IDC's mandate for manufacturing, it's primarily in the manufacturing industry, and along the value chains of the metals, mining, agriculture. But then there's also the industrial infrastructure. And then we have what we call the high growth or the high impact sectors, which is the film and media, tourism, and so on. So if one goes to sees what our mandate is, primarily in manufacturing, it is in line with those. Unfortunately, the program does not support, well, IDC does not support necessarily the retail and services sectors. Those are catered for by other DFIs, including CIFA.
And the size of loans that you'll be making available?
Well, generally our loans start from about R1 million and upwards. We don't necessarily have a top end, but we generally start from R1 million, and it's in that area that we are looking at. But R1 million for a manufacturing concern is not necessarily that much money.
You've been dealing with the youth for some time anyway, but what's different now with the GrowE Youth Scheme?
Well, the GrowE Youth Scheme has been around for a little while. We've adjusted it. We need to go back and see. Last year, IDC moved on a new strategy, which was Project Evolve, which we decided that we needed to move strategically into certain areas, including the value chain approach I mentioned, but also start identifying very important developmental outcomes that IDC needed to achieve. And although we've been monitoring our youth-owned, youth participation in businesses, we felt that we needed to play a much more active role, particularly after assigning the Youth Accord and so on. And the Youth Accord was used for a couple of years, but we have re-looked at it, and re-looked at it in the eyes of why are we not reaching as many youth as we would like, and then covered. And in concurrence with that, the Grow Youth Scheme, we also developed a new product called the Pipeline Development Program, Support Program, which assists youth that might not really be there in terms of meeting the requirements, but we can help them through the pre-investment stage, during the investment stage, in other words, meeting certain conditions precedent that very often are a bit of a hurdle to youth, and then again, support going into the post-investment. So we have a target of 4.5 billion rand for the 5 years, and in terms of what we have as a department or a target in IDC to achieve this financial year is 1 billion rand. We hit 970 million rand last year, so our target is higher. And hopefully we can do that. And I think we're trying a number of initiatives that will actually drive this pipeline so that we can exceed the 1 billion. But as I say, there is no upper limit, where it's not as if we'll put a cap on how many youth transactions we do. In fact, we would love to do as many transactions as possible.
We started with labor broking, labor hire of the different mining skills. I started being involved in providing them with different services, ventilation, structures, maintenance of their conveyor belts. We also did the stone dust barriers for underground to prevent fire.
We really want to build our company into a brand, a household brand. Every home, or every black home specifically in a township, should be able to refer to Pangule and indirectly be referring to recycling as a lingo.
It was difficult because there were times whereby I stood some months not getting salary.